So I have made my presentation. It is part of my PhD thesis. I've studied in Romania, and now I'm doing my PhD here in Albania. So my thesis is particularly regarding the first year of transition from communism to democracy. And this paper, can you see it? Okay. And this paper is related to my to a small piece of in one chapter about the first year of transition. Albania has experienced a very wild and very totalitarian regime communism in Europe. It is as on the last year in which the communism was overthrown in Europe. Mostly of the international pressure and a little about the intern politics. So these social and political movements in the first year were very concentrated in some, let's say, first political parties and in some students' movements. So as the main purpose of the study, I'm going to identify their role in the transition process and in the democratization process, what it is the role of citizens in the transitional democracy and the efforts to give more competencies to the people, because in a totalitarianism regime, and particularly in Albania, it was no rights, no freedom, and everything was under control of the government. So in 1990, as the European of East and other countries experienced the transitional to democracy, also Albania was the last country. And despite this, some form of unconventional participations, like protests and movements, were allowed to give way to this democratization process. So this study encouraged the civic participation not only through the conventional concepts like elections and voting, but also in unconventional forms like protest and movements. So, and the main purpose of this study of these movements is to reserve collective memory and building new identities to this new democracy, which is in the very beginning. And I have concentrate my paper in some theoretical approaches regarding to these social and political movements, and then I'm going to describe briefly about them. And in the first year, let me explain a little bit why I have mentioned the year 1997, because in Albania in 1997 was a very crucial year about the way to transitional democracy, because it was nearly a civil war in which were engaged a lot of international corps. We have also some Romanian corps to maintain the peace and to maintain relatively stable conditions, political conditions and economical conditions, like Operation Alba, maybe you know. So these approaches for study the social and political movements in Albania, I'm going to describe them from some perspective, like an political opportunity theory. So the movements emerge and developed when changes occur in the political structure that give a citizen more room for actions. So in the Albanian case, the decline of the authority of the totalitarianism regime and the party state and the fear and the loss of legitimacy, especially after the death of our dictator, created the conditions for expressions and more room for these actions to begin. Another theory is about the mobilization theory. So this approach argues that the success of the movements depend on the ability to organize our resources like human, financial, and logistical. In Albania, the organization of students, particularly the first movement, was those of movement of students and intellectuals of the University of Tirana who led the protest and built the first political structure and the first political parties. Another theory is the collective identity theory. In the period of great changes, like the regime, the changes of the regime from totalitarianism to democrat regime, the creation of a common identity, such as democratic youth, democratic intellectuals, was crucial for resistance and participation. So this theoretical framework help us to understand that in Albania, the movements of this period was not only spontaneous, but also very closely to the intellectuals, to the elite, and to the social transformation that take place not in the country, but and in the other countries, so abroad. And in the last approach, the relative deprivation theory, movements arise when individuals feel deprived of rights and benefits, and they believe they should have them. So in Albania, especially the young people and the workers felt disillusioned and dissatisfied from the regime, from the communist regime, due to the low standards of the life. So they begin to gather and they begin to request more rights and more freedoms, especially in the human rights freedom. In 1990, the context of Albania was that Albania experienced a very totalitarianism regime and in the late 80s it was a very deep and deep economic and social crisis all over the country in all the part of the life. So it was the lack of political freedom, extreme poverty, international isolations. So the communism system, it was not able to maintain the power. So it was necessary, and from the outside news that came, like the assassination of Ceausescu was a very big that begin the whole process of democratization. So the other cause of these movements were in big let's say part deep political and economic and cultural isolation. So in this context, the social and political movements emerge as a response to oppression and a demand for changes in the 13 in the whole aspects of the life. So how all happened and which are these political and social movements in Albania? Let's say the first one, it's a very important movements were the students' movement, the students' demonstration of the University of Tirana begins in December 1990. They demand political pluralism and freedom in the first place, and then begin the other their request. And with these movements begin also the created of the first political party, the first opposite political party, which was the Democratic Party. Um, in the early 90s, the political and the social movements were related to democracy and political rights, and mainly after some years related to the economic crisis. In December 1990, the first movement and the let's say most important of this period was till the years 2000 was the student movement, in which they demand political pluralism, and it became a catalyst of for the overthrow of the communist regime. And as a response to these movements, the students and the intellectuals created the first opposite party and the Democratic Party, which took the power in 1992. And later, from 1992 to 1997, in the Albania was governed by the Democratic Party, the first opposite party. What happened to the Communist Party is that it's changed his name and also his nature, become more, let's say, in accordance with the European parties of the of that period, regarding the human rights and the good economic conditions. So in 1997, we in Albania, maybe you know, we experienced a particularly phenomena which was related to the pyramid schemes. It was economic, let's say, structure that people may like a bank in which people put their money and take their interest, but it began to put their money and their savings and took the interest, but it was whole very let's say inappropriate methods of make money quickly. So in 1997, a lot of people were very disappointed from this economic politics. So policies, sorry, from this economic policy. So begin massive protests and civil violence erupted. So once upon a time, the citizens begin to create a group of protests and another social movements regarding this state begin in Albania, especially in south of the country. The political parties created in their period weren't able to maintain the power and to give solution to this economic crisis. So they reorganized in a very specific government that we know in Albania. It is the reconciliation government. in which was created a government that gathered the whole the political party to create a more stable and a more important government. So in the period January and March 1990, particular massive protests and rebellion spread all over the country, especially in South. Institutions were burned and military depots were looted, and citizens were massively armed, which was one and very big and maybe the last of these movements against the state and the government. In this chaos, particularly from international pressure and the domestic pressure for a peaceful end solution, once again, the international community pushed the political compromise to prevent the conflict, and the public opinion and the opposition parties demanded for a more important government to establish the whole peace. So all major Albanian political parties joined together and in an effort to stop civil war and to stabilize the country. So these were mainly two periods, very important periods in Albania that reshaped our domestic policies and politics regarding the participation of the people in the power, especially not only by voting and by elections, but by the other form, unconventional form, like protests and movements for a better solution to our problems. So the movements of this period brought significant changes in Albanian society. Like they create a multi-partitism system. In the totalitarianism, there is only one party system. So after the overthrow of the communism and with the beginning of these movements in Albania was created a multi-partitism system, which is till now the same system. Increase civic engagements and more political and social process, developed a civil society. It is a concept that it is not known till that period. Like non-governmental organization begin to play a very important role in the policies and in the services. Changes in the social and the economic structure of Albania, like economic and social reforms begin in the Albanian society, and in conclusions, these political and social movements of 90 and 97 were key important in the history of Albania because they demonstrate and strengthen the desire of citizens to change and to build a new democratic identity and a new open society. And however, the challenges of this period show that the transition democracy is still in a long and difficult process. So I have prepared some photos about this movement. Like it is a very common let's say in Albania in 1990s, because Albania was a very close country, a very isolated country, and since the process of opening towards the Europe, we begin to like Albania, like all Europes. It is a main slogan of that period. This is the overthrow of the boost of dictator, which led to massive protests and especially from the part of the students, the movement students were a very social, a very important social movement. And this is what happened in South in 1990s, 1997. Sorry for my English. I hope it was a very interesting presentation.